They don't teach you this in school, that you are not thinking your own thoughts. You are borrowing them from the glowing screens, from the mouths of your heroes, from the herd that calls itself normal. Every choice you make feels personal, but it's been rehearsed, programmed, molded by a system that praises obedience and punishes awareness. And the worst part, you feel like it's your fault, that the emptiness in your chest is your own failure, not a byproduct of the maze you were born into. Welcome to the cage, not of steel bars, but invisible threads. Welcome to the elite rat society. The trick is simple. Make the rat believe it's free, while training it to chase rewards that never feed its soul. The lie of choice. Look around you. We are flooded with choices, apps, jobs, identities, belief systems. They sell you the illusion of freedom, like candy at the gates of a trap. But every option comes from the same box. Scroll or suffer. Work or be worthless. Obey or be forgotten. The menu may be wide, but the kitchen is the same. They feed you dopamine with deadlines, acceptance with conditions, and meaning only if you perform. And the terrifying question no one wants to ask, what if your dreams were given to you by someone who profits from your pursuit? You were never meant to build a life. Just maintain the system. Call it ambition. Call it progress. Call it your calling. But don't call it what it is. A leash. The script. You didn't write. You were handed a script. Before you could speak, they filled your head with words like, be good, be smart, be useful, but never be aware, be still, be free. The script is subtle. It tells you how to dress, who to impress, what success is supposed to look like. And if you stray, they call you lazy, broken, lost. So you stay in line, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system was wired to survive approval. They clap when you succeed, but it's not joy, it's control. Because every applause trains you, like a lab rat. Do this again. Be this again. Perform. Your worth becomes a performance, and your exhaustion, a badge of honor. The reward trap. In this invisible experiment, you are not a person. You are a pattern. They don't need chains anymore. Just likes, views, arrays. And it works. Because the reward is never enough. You get it, you feel high for 5 minutes, then empty again. So you chase harder. Confusing motion for meaning. Chasing shadows and calling it the grind. But what if the reward isn't the prize? What if the chase itself is the trap? You keep running the maze. Not because there's cheese at the end, but because stopping would mean facing the silence. And the silence would reveal you don't even know what you truly want. You only know what you've been told to chase. The perfect lab. Rat. They've made you ideal. You work without questioning. You scroll to self-soothe. You panic in stillness. You fear being irrelevant. You apologize for resting. You think burnout is bravery. You are the dream subject of a system that profits from your confusion. And if you ever wake up, you'll blame yourself before blaming them. You'll say, I should be more productive. I need to fix my mindset. I must not be enough. You'll turn the cage into a mirror and call it self-improvement. Because the elite rat society doesn't just trap your body. It hijacks your beliefs. It convinces you that escaping means failing. So you stay, and smile, and suffer. The echo of your own mind. Here's what they can't control. That tiny whisper in the back of your mind, the one that wakes up late at night and asks dangerous questions. Why do I feel so numb? Why do I feel watched, even when alone? Why does everything feel hollow? That whisper is not your weakness. It's your rebellion. It's the leftover spark they couldn't smother. But it's fragile. And if you ignore it too long, you'll forget it was ever there. They want you scrolling instead of thinking, achieving instead of healing, competing instead of connecting, because awareness breaks the maze. Stillness cracks the program. The rats who pause, remember, they were never rats at all. The first glitch, it begins when you start to hesitate, to look at your schedule and ask, who am I doing this for? To look at your dreams and wonder, did I choose this? Or was I trained to want it? To hear the praise and feel numb. This is the first glitch in the matrix. It doesn't look like rebellion. It looks like fatigue, disinterest, a strange craving for solitude. But underneath, something holy is stirring. You don't want more. You want real. And for that, you'll have to stop running. Not because you've arrived, but because you finally see the path was never yours to begin with. And that is the beginning of the break. Because when one rat stops running, the others start to wonder why. But what happens when the entire maze starts glitching? That's where we go next. And it's the part they fear the most. Shall we? But you don't remember when you joined. You never signed a form. You never pledged loyalty. Still, you play their game. Every day. Every moment. You chase. You compare. You perform. And that's the genius of it. The elite rat society doesn't ask for your permission. It just rewards the part of you that aches to feel significant. And over time, that ache becomes your compass. It tells you where to run, who to envy, how to posture. They don't need to trap you, because the maze is built from your own unhealed hunger. The silent trick? They give you a role. Not power, not peace, just a role. The overachiever, the quiet genius, the pretty one, the rebel, the reliable fixer. A name that others respect, but a prison you can't question, because it comes with applause. The mind doesn't fear cages that come with claps, but applause is a trick. It trains you like a lab rat. Every smile, every like, every "you're so smart" is a pellet you chase. So you start rehearsing instead of living. You learn which version of you wins attention. And you feed that version while starving everything else. The weird parts, the quiet parts, the scared parts. Gone, hidden, forgotten, but not dead. That's where the rot begins. Because anything you bury to be loved will eventually scream. It will whisper at 3 a.m. It will ache during conversations that feel too fake. It will numb you in rooms filled with laughter. Because performance feels like connection. Until it doesn't. Then it feels like panic. The elite rat society never needed to build a cage. They just needed to convince you that approval is oxygen. And once they do that, you'll build the cage yourself. Decorate it with productivity. Paint it with success. Frame it with aesthetic. And call it freedom. But you'll always feel slightly off. Like there's a version of you somewhere. Screaming through the walls you pretend don't exist. And here's the trick that burns the deepest. They make you think everyone else is free. You scroll and see highlight reels. You compare your inside mess to their polished masks. And you think, maybe I'm just not good enough yet. But they're not free either. They're rats too. Just better at looking clean in the cage. Because this society doesn't need to oppress you. It just needs you to keep comparing. Comparison, that's the leash. The moment you compare, you step into the maze. The moment you compare, you forget your own rhythm. And when you forget your rhythm, you lose the power to walk away. You don't even realize you're running. You just call it ambition. Call it content creation. Call it building your brand. But if you're honest, you're just scared of being invisible. You've been taught that being seen equals being safe. So you scream your worth through metrics, through aesthetics, through constant movement. But what if being seen isn't the same as being known? What if this society doesn't actually want to know you? Only the version of you that doesn't make them uncomfortable. You won't cry too loud. You won't rest too long. You won't be too slow, too soft, too still. Because you think softness is failure. Stillness is laziness. Slowness is falling behind. Who told you that? Who convinced you that peace had to be earned through exhaustion? The society did. And the moment you start slowing down, the rats start whispering. You'll fall behind. You'll become irrelevant. You'll lose everything. So you run again. Not because you want to, but because rest feels like death. That's the silent control. The leash you don't see. The whip you hold yourself. But here's something strange. Every now and then, someone stops running. And when they do, it terrifies you. Because their stillness reflects your chaos. Their calm makes you feel exposed. Their peace feels like judgment. Not because they're judging you, but because you're judging yourself. You want to hate them, call them lazy, call them arrogant. But a deeper part of you whispers, what if they're free? And that question ruins everything the society built, because it plants a doubt in the maze. What if the race was never real? What if the reward was never peace? What if the cage was built from lies? And you were the one tightening the lock. The elite rat society can't survive doubt. Doubt is dangerous. It breaks illusions. It makes you pause. And pausing is where remembering begins. Because there was a time before the maze, before the brand, before the mask, when you existed without performance. Do you remember? Do you remember who you were before the world told you who to be? That's the question they don't want you to ask. Because the moment you remember, you might stop playing. And if enough of us stop playing, the whole game breaks. But the society is clever. It knows how to reactivate you. One little notification, one moment of praise, one person who says, "You inspire me." And suddenly, you're back in the role, the admired one, the driven one, the genius. But you're not free, because freedom isn't praise. It's the ability to be unseen and still feel whole. It's the power to be misunderstood and still feel calm. It's the strength to walk away without a performance. But walking away isn't easy, because leaving the maze means facing everything you avoided inside it. The fear, the sadness, the unvalidated parts of you. But what if that's the real trick? What if what you're running from is the very thing that could finally set you free? And what if the only way out is to stop running entirely? Because silence isn't empty. It's where the real you is waiting for you to remember that you were never just a rat. You were never meant to compete, perform, or prove. You were meant to be. And the ones who realize that are the only ones the society can't control. Now ask yourself, what if you've already heard this truth before, but kept running anyway? What happens if you stop this time? And what if the maze has already started collapsing behind you, and all that's left now is the choice? So you pause, not because it feels safe, but because running finally feels worse. And in the silence, something unfamiliar arrives. Not applause, not admiration, just space. No one claps when you slow down. No one rewards you for resting. No one validates your rebellion against the invisible. And yet, there's something pure in it, like standing still in a burning forest, like breathing for the first time without someone watching. At first, you panic. Your mind screams, "You're falling behind. You're nothing without momentum. You're wasting your potential." But that's not your voice. That's the society's ghost, echoing through your nervous system. And here's the secret. That ghost gets louder before it disappears. Because the maze doesn't die quietly. It begs. It bargains. It reminds you of every unfinished dream, every person still watching, every role you promised to keep playing. But if you sit long enough, if you let the noise rise without obeying it, something breaks. Not you. The illusion. And when the illusion breaks, you see it all so clearly. You see how exhaustion became a badge, how you wore burnout like armor, how you confused praise with purpose, and how every version of success was just another trick. Because true success was never public. It was peace. It was sovereignty. It was freedom from needing to be seen just to feel real. But you forgot that. They made you forget. They flooded your senses with images of what matters: followers, comments, rankings, awards, respect. But the ones who sell that version of worth, they're still running too. And deep down, they're just as tired. Because the elite rat society has no finish line. No one wins. Everyone just bleeds prettier. But the moment you no longer fear invisibility, you become dangerous. You stop trying to impress. You start speaking with honesty. You stop apologizing for resting. You start creating without the hunger to be crowned. And something wild happens. Your joy returns, your weirdness, your curiosity, your softness. You stop curating and start expressing, not for applause, but for release. You remember what it means to live, not just to perform aliveness. And those around you, they notice, some admire, some get angry, some distance themselves because your stillness threatens their speed. But a few, they'll recognize it. because they've been waiting too, waiting for someone to say what no one else dared to say. I'm done performing. I'm done running. I'm done being who the world rewards, at the cost of my soul. And in that moment, you're not alone anymore, because freedom creates a ripple. One person stepping out of the maze makes the walls feel less permanent for the rest. And soon, cracks appear in the structure, not from force, but from truth. And that's the society's greatest fear. Not revolution, not noise, but truth. Spoken softly, lived fully, shared freely. The truth that you're enough, not because of what you produce or how you're praised, but because your being, your breath, your stillness is already whole. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing approval, you become magnetic, not because you're performing, but because you've reclaimed your power. People feel it. They don't know why, but your peace unnerves them. It reminds them of everything they've avoided. You don't need to scream it. You just live it. You walk slower. You speak softer. You listen deeper. And in your presence, others remember who they were before the world told them to become someone else. You become a mirror, not one that flatters, one that reveals, and some will hate you for it. Because not everyone wants to be free. Some still find comfort in cages that come with praise. But that's not your weight to carry anymore. You're not here to drag people out of the maze. You're just here to leave it, visibly, boldly, silently, and maybe without meaning to. You'll guide others to their own exits, not through force, but through example, because the fastest way to destroy the society is to stop believing in the roles it offered. The moment you drop your role, the maze begins to crumble. One less player, one less rat, one more soul returned to wholeness. That's how the system breaks. Not with noise, but with people who no longer need it. And now, it's your turn. Not to prove, not to impress, but to remember. Remember the you before the mask, before the chase, before you thought worth was something to earn. You were whole before the world made you split yourself into pieces just to be accepted. And every day you choose stillness. Every moment you pause instead of react. Every breath you take, without performing, you reclaim another piece. Until one day, there's no mask left, no role left, just you. Unarmored, unapologetic, unedited. That's the real freedom. And the society? It loses its grip on you forever. But it starts now, not with a dramatic exit, not with a speech or a rebellion, with a whisper in your own mind, I no longer play their game. Let that whisper guide you. Let it disrupt your habits. Let it remind you that peace doesn't need proof. Then watch what happens. Because once you stop running, you'll realize you were never meant to be a rat in their maze. You were the maze breaker. You were the one they couldn't control. And now, you're free.